Hi, this is Ed in San Diego, and it's 15 May and just about 7 a.m. here in California. It's 4 p.m. in Germany, Central European time. Welcome to our new broadcast called Resilience. And this launches a frequent series. I'm not sure if it'll be every week, but it's certainly every 2 weeks. And many times different guests, but we're all going to be talking about experiences today and recently about how we're coping with change post-COVID. Very active business environment. We just got back from Europe last night, where we produced a live conference, our first live conference in 3.5 years in London. We are very honored to have as our host facilitator the bank, HSBC, and they hosted us in their executive broadcast center high above Canary Wharf, or Cannery Wharf, however is proper. And we just had a terrific time. And our host, HSBC, and our top partner in this, AGS and Mobilitas, Andy Elliman, close advisor and speaker. And we had other sponsors as well, including Sandra Corona in Saudi Arabia, Expatology. And also we had as a co-sponsor, Mike Hibbard, Global Expat Pay. And also as a co-sponsor, the global law firm, Mayer Brown. And our guest speaker was London-based James Perrott. And he was explicit about the risks, compliance, and the challenges of immigration these days. And we had several speakers from around the world virtually. It was really a great experience. So now we're launching a series of new programs, including global travel, including this one, Resilience, and including others specifically geared with the new world of global talent development, acquisition, and using mobility to develop that talent. So we'll be right back. Thank you. Okay, we're back on Global TV Talk Show, and it's May 15. It's a little, it's on just 6:59 a.m. here in California and 4 p.m. in Germany. Welcome, Dr. Natalie. Just great to have you on the show again. And hi, Tori Wichar in British Columbia, and hi, Mark Colo from the Rocky St. George in Utah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, okay, welcome. Tori, say hi.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Yeah, hi there, welcome. Meet Stephen Howard, who's coming to us from Mexico City. And so I'm extemporaneously speaking here. As you know, this show is basically not scripted. It's almost in a documentary format. And our theme today, and for several programs coming forward for the rest of this year, and who knows what's happening next year, is called Resilience. Now, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. To me, it's withstanding the pressures of being on camera all the time. So, you know, I comb my hair, as you could see, and I've got the bright lights on this time rather than being in the dark. Here, I'll show you the difference. Ooh, see, it's a little spooky, but I thought we ought to open up today and be more open and resilient to the impacts of media. And how are we getting on about that? So how am I personally resolving issues about me looking at the camera and not looking too close, because then I get reflected here? And so you all must have the same issues at times. And so the idea is to figure out what you want to say in advance. And so you have your own script. And then when your time comes, or when you just want to jump in with a point to make or a comment on somebody else's ideas about resilience and reflecting on the impacts of a lousy boss or being laid off or being thrown into the mix with people who you think don't like you, but you have to deal and smile and be kind. So Dr. Natalie, welcome again. You're here from Germany, from Hamburg, and I thank you very much for being a virtual speaker last week in London.
That was a beautiful event. And now that I see the picture, it's even better, because as a virtual participant, you can't see as much. But now that I saw the pictures, it was amazing. And I loved all of the other speakers and the question. It was a very resilient audience, I would say.
You're so kind. So you know what? It was pretty interesting for me as the organizer and the product developer and of course moderator to see it all come true. I've been thinking about doing a live meeting for more than 3 years since the last one on February 27 in 2020 in Washington, D.C. And then 2 days prior in New York City in Times Square. Well, not out in the open, but in a bank office high above Times Square. And then 3.5 years of doing nothing live, but learning how to do global TV. So Dr. Natalie, thank you for being on our program so frequently. Mark Colo, Stephen Howard, and Tori. So let me make sure you all know Tori Wichar. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Tori?
Yeah, you are, and I believe I've met Mark, Stephen, and Natalie on previous segments before as well.
So Tori and I met through a mutual friend and business acquaintance, Dr. Andrew Woods, who's been a speaker at several of my earlier live meetings, going back almost to last century. But they are both in Vancouver, British Columbia, and both have been involved in education. And they teamed up to write a book, and I was really fortunate to be a mention in that, Tori. Do you happen to have that book cover handy?
I can grab it real fast. Yeah, I wasn't prepared to promote my book, but yes, of course, Ed.
Why not? This is PR. Get ready.
I mean, Stephen is the king of writing books, so this is just was a lucky one for us. But this is the audacious ask.
Yeah, hold it back a little bit. Hold it back from the camera a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose my background.
Yeah, the background. So it's called Audacious Ask, and that refers to somebody like me who's always asking for money or doing something.
Yeah, it refers basically just the art of asking more of anything, more questions, more of yourself. I feel like, as we all know, we've probably all experienced failure many times, and it can be easy to perhaps get in your shell and not want to keep asking for help, or not want to keep asking for advice, or asking for a sale, whatever it is. So it's almost like a muscle that we have to keep exercising. Just rejection and failure is kind of a part of business, and getting in the habit of continuously asking can be a simple sort of mental motto to keep up with. So yeah, we put Ed in the book, and of course Ed has been making a lot of asks for a long time, and that's why you're able to do such cool conferences in London. So just, I think you're living it.
Oh, that's really cool. Sorry, I just clicked the wrong button here and disappeared. Mark Colo, you just recently were a featured speaker at TEDx in St. George, Utah. So congratulations for doing that. I've never done that. That takes a lot of guts. And, particularly because you're showing off your strength having to deal with Parkinson's, which is no easy thing, mentally as well as physically. So how did you achieve reaching that state of resilience you
Well,
know.
I thought about them putting a straitjacket on me of some sort so that I wouldn't vibrate off the stage. That was the first thing I thought about.
Well, you know, with our mutual friend Larry Linton in Canada, he got to play the drums because of his tremors.
He did. I stole one of his jokes too. I never have to worry about buying an electric toothbrush. I got 3 other good ones in there, but if you haven't watched the video yet, please watch it. And
No, I
if you
haven't
like-
done
if you
that, but
like
I do have
send
it. Yeah.
Send it to whomever you think might benefit because it's got some
Yeah.
good lessons of life.
So I've got an idea for you, Mark.
Yeah.
Being an aggressive coffee drinker this morning after flying 13 hours from Europe yesterday, why don't you send everybody in the chat the link, the YouTube link to that video? Now I
I
can
did
do it
just that.
also.
If you look in the chat, it should
Yeah.
be in there right now.
Yeah.
So I just did that. So you've got all my graffiti from all my years of work and how Stephen Howard's great expertise in helping me audit one of my books, which is fun. So
Yeah. Okay. One of them is that Peace with Parkinson's or the Noble Great Ones?
noble and great ones.
Yeah. Noble Great Ones refers to people who have an affliction and then they do something about it, right?
Generally speaking, noble and great ones is about living a noble life. And you know, it really there's an order and sequence to the words. People that just seek after greatness sometimes pass right by nobility. And yet, if you seek nobility first, you'll always attain greatness. So that's kind of the general thought behind the title. But then it's just down to, you know, it's not about proportions. It's what's in the glass that matters most. What makes you up as a person, you know, the strength you have as a person and the talents you have and being able to cultivate and find those. Some people will never find their talents because they're so afraid to face, you know, standing on a TEDx stage. I mean, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah,
Boy.
well, I wouldn't encourage you to go do it real quick because it's really nerve-wracking when the administration that's running that show, that event, says, "Mark, we want you to go first." And there were like 11 speakers. And what would you think when they said that to you? Ed, would you please go first?
I think I'd begin stuttering again after 20 years.
So I had a little more pressure than just the Parkinson's going on there.
Yeah, this is great.
But
Okay,
well, you guys be the judge. See it. Tell me what you think. And be the
we
judge
will.
of whether you enjoy
We
it or
will.
not.
This is going to be a jury. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about the recent experience in London. We can talk about the Paris trip we just did also, but London was the first live meeting I was willing to try to produce in more than 3 years, and the actual development of it and the concept began just about a year ago with my pal Andy Elliman from London, from AGS Global Solutions. He and the guy who turned out to be our champion internally in HSBC, Carl Vinder is his first name. He's in charge of the worldwide India corridor. In other words, a pathway of communication with the Indians diaspora around the world, and high net worth individuals in particular who need advice as well as guidance and a place to park their money. But, and so that's the tie-in. Andy and Carl have known each other a number of years, and I had never met Carl before. But Andy says, well, I've got this guy, this friend, who has asked me to help him do more in a PR point of view. And so he says, how would you like to put on a meeting and we'll find a way to get it done behind the scenes so you have very little risk other than putting on a good show. Of course, that's the most important thing. To attract an audience, not only on that day, but produce a program that you can record and distribute and market across the world through Global TV Network. So I said, whoa, okay. And so I thought of people who we already knew who would be interesting, such as, amongst others, Stephen Howard and Dr. Natalie and many others. And then Andrew says that I've got a long list of corporate accounts in London and we'll start inviting them. How many can you bring, Ed? So I said, well, I've got 18,000 LinkedIn connections, but nobody's ever met me. So I don't know whether that can work. Let's go to work and try to make it happen. Turns out we produced a show and it was very well received. The executives, many of you who saw the program live, got to meet the senior level of HSBC in this regard. And thankfully they liked it and said, let's do it again in September and maybe beyond. Excellent. So I'm really honored. And the planning has already begun, frankly. So Joanne and I went over to Paris to begin talks with some people and get a new feel for Paris. So our first Paris meeting, I'll be real quick here, was in 1999, and Philip Berry, who was one of the speakers on last week's show in London, Philip Berry was at the time global leader of HR and all things people within Colgate-Palmolive Corporation, and is based in Paris for a long time, but managed operations and people and HR business partnerships around the world, 60 countries. Philip, I was introduced to Philip, never met him before. And I asked him the keynote Paris event, and of course he said yes, being the showboat guy he is, and full of knowledge. And he brought in some other people, including our friend Sandrine Bardot, who was French, and at the time was European head for Microsoft in Compton Ben, and is for a long time now has been living in Dubai. And Sandrine has been on our program several times and will again, particularly when and if we're able to work with HSBC and others in Dubai. And that's not announced yet, but it's one of these early stage development programs for global TV. So I welcome you all if you want to meet us live in Dubai or do it virtual. It'll be a lot cheaper if you do it virtual, that's for sure. Stephen Howard, so I understand you're going to relocate today across the park. And so you and Adriana, so I wish you well on the move and hope nothing breaks. I also want to welcome to the show Tineke Rensen, who's I think in Rotterdam. Hi, Tineke, welcome.
Hey, Ed, hello. Yes, I'm at home in my home office in near Rotterdam, the Netherlands.
Yeah, are you still in a cast?
No, let me show you. I know I have a brace.
Yeah.
I can walk. I'm pleasantly surprised. I am not handicapped anymore.
So at one time in your past, you were an athlete, and so what were you doing? Were you jumping off buildings or what?
Well, now at this, Natalie, you weren't there, but you were supposed to be there. I was in the UK with a retreat of European transformational leaders. And we were doing some kind of exercise, and I just felt like, playing around and having fun. And I started skipping through the room, and that didn't go well. So I completely ruptured my Achilles tendons.
Oh my! Oh.
Yeah, so that's like 2.5 weeks ago, and I had to stay on before they were willing to let me go home. And then Thursday they were going to take off the cask, I think you call it,
yeah.
And they were going to replace it with another one, but luckily they just changed the procedure. So I now have a brace. I already started physiotherapy today. I can already walk. So I'm completely thrilled that we have new procedure in only in my hospital, because the physiotherapist did not agree at all to treat me this way. But I said, hey, it's a doctor's prescription. I'm allowed to walk, so let's continue do that. So yeah, But I can tell you, running a business and being like really in a wheelchair and on crutches and not being able to even walk your cup of tea to your desk, it's not pleasant.
So Stephen Howard, you've got 22 books under your belt, and the 22 is the most recent, Humany, Humony, and that's humanyleadership.com. Tell us and the world about that.
Well, thanks, Ed. Humany is a word I created. I created it using combining humanity and harmony. First, to emphasize the need for leaders to focus on the fact that they lead people. They don't manage people, and the fact that we need to build workplaces of well-being and harmony. And when I started the research for the book and I asked people to talk about the harmony in their workplace, everyone laughed at me and scoffed at me and said there is no such thing as harmony in the workplace. And, but there's some cases there is. But yeah, so that's the emphasis of the book. It's about being people-centric as a leader, people-centric focus, and doesn't mean people over profits. That's an either or situation, but it means people plus profits, people plus results, focusing on people first.
Interesting. Comments?
Yes,
Tori?
of course, because you didn't give me time to speak about my topic. This is totally what I. Oh, sorry, Ed.
I'm just a happy talk show host.
Yeah, what I resonate with, because I always say there's masculine and feminine behavior and culture and strategies and skills and energy. And this totally resonates to me with the feminine behavior, where you create harmony, where it's about people. And the old way of leadership is very masculine, is about power, is about control, is about output control, is about data, targets. And it's just this weekend, I mean, I now speak to more people because I need to ask people to come and pick me up. So one of my nephews was driving me around and he said, where I work, Tineke, he was the manager of the sales department of a global corporation. And he said, we don't do targets. I said, what? I said, so how is it going? He said, it's growing, but we are very selective who we employ. We don't do negotiations for salaries. We just say, this is how much you earn. Everybody makes the same in the same position. And he said, we even need to stop people because they have the right drive, because they get our trust. And I said, well, this is exactly what I'm researching at the moment. And this is exactly where I want corporate organizations and leaders to go to, that you need to trust people and they are allowed to make mistakes, because that's feedback. You can only play if you're allowed to make mistakes. You can only grow if you're allowed to make mistakes. So Stephen, thank you. I cannot agree more with you. And we're in this transition at the moment and we're all part of this, so it's beautiful that we can contribute to this massive change, which is neat.
Yeah, so Stephen, I would think, but based upon what Tineke was just saying, and this is unscripted, but so stream of consciousness, humany is not at all feminine. It's the real power behind the throne, from your view, isn't it? I mean, the real power is being a leader that enables staff, other people, to excel, and in a quiet way, like almost like pulling the strings from behind the scenes, but not. Yeah. Or maybe you are. I don't know.
No, it's a little bit of leading from the back, leading from the front. It's a combination of a lot of things, and it in some psychological profiles you would emphasize the femininity aspect of it because things like we're talking about resilience, empathy, emotional intelligence, The psychologists have identified those as more feminine traits than masculine traits. Resilience is kind of in the border of the two, I think. I'm not a psychologist, but the way people bounce back. And what I propose in the book is that part of resiliency is planning for resiliency, planning for adaptability in a different way, rather than just having, when I was in the corporate world, we had plan A and plan B. Well, I'm suggesting the way you plan for adaptability and agility is to have plan A, plan B1, B2, maybe C1 and C2 and C3, and know what you're going to do in advance. Right now, a lot of resiliency in the workplace and agility in the workplace is reacting. And I'm suggesting that if we do a better job of planning for adaptability, planning for agility, we'll be better leaders, and our people won't get burnt out. A lot of what happens in the workplace is when things change, then everyone starts working 24/7 for 2 weeks at a time, put SWAT teams together and everything else, and you burn your people out. I don't think that's necessary. It's as Taneki, I may pronounce it incorrectly, I'm sorry, but as she just said, it's a new world, and we have to lead differently. The old style leadership does not work very long in today's world.
So, Dr. Natalie, you were a speaker, a virtual speaker and commentator in the London meeting, and I really appreciate that. I frankly blew it. Just talk about my own resilience, and I try not to show that I didn't know what I was doing in managing the technology, but I was trying to manage the talk flow and getting people involved, and the positioning of the cameras in the room. Now, this was a broadcast studio within the bank, and they've got it figured for their purposes. It wasn't for my purpose. I had to try to fit in, talk about resilience. And then the idea was to communicate effectively, not only to the people sitting around the meeting room. I think there were 38 people in that room. And virtually, we had speakers, as you know, from different places, different time zones. And sometimes the screen adaptations didn't really work, and other times there was confusion. I tried not to show that I didn't know what was going on, other than and which camera to look at what time. But you came across beautifully on the big screen, Dr. Natalie, and I just don't mean that physically, but the way that you addressed the issue of resilience and people who are in a difficult situation, I believe that resonated throughout the world of the people watching that show. So would you mind addressing the general topic of resilience connected with what I'm babbling about here, but with relation to what Tineke was just saying and what Stephen was just saying about how companies are changing? And we just had a couple of examples.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I was going to chime in with Stephen and Tineke. Anyhow, your example is perfect because in the changing environment, I think we all see it. The EQ becomes more important. The idea of soft skills. We even see it nowadays in job announcements. Yes, there are some tech skills that you're required to do, but it's really the focus is on communication, working in a team, being flexible. All of those things have moved up. And I think a big part, and I sort of gonna say that I think I heard Stephen say that as well, it's not just flexibility, it's not just agility, it's actually the support and the sharing. So for example, and however comfortable or uncomfortable you were, I felt it was important because I remember you saying, well, hold on, let me get help. I felt that was really important to share because as a leader, we also need to say, I don't really know how to do this, or wow, that didn't work out the way I wanted to. What that does in return really means that others, and that word fell just a couple minutes ago, trust us more because they see, we also have issues. We also have things going on. And therefore the resilience, it's, I don't even think we have really a fitting word in German for it. It's so it's so overused in some ways, but what it means is being able to do it all and to be it all. So not just be in a straitjacket and not just have the blinders on, but actually take the blinders off and see what's out there and try to get everybody to chime in a way. And sometimes, as Stephen was saying, you have to do that from the front and tell people, hey, I want your opinion now. But they might not share if they don't trust you. And sometimes you have to stand in the back and just say, hey, let's do this now. And so I see the notes that Tineke and Stephen are putting up, and I agree. It's not soft skills, that's the term we're using. It is essential skills. The key here, I think, is that, yesterday was Mother's Day. And I'm only referring to that because I don't know if you've seen this video about the job description for a mother. And I think it also applies for a father, okay, who's involved, the mother who's involved and a father who's involved, single or not. What's our job description? It's like doing all these different things. So we all have those skills, whether we're male or female. Some of us do. And we just need to apply them. If we're running a family or taking care of a family, we need to do it all. We need to be able to have plan A, B, C, D, E. We need to know that, whoa, this person just fell down. Let me help them up before I do something else. It's that flexibility. It's also being able to look your kids in the eye and say, hey, mom, I ain't feeling bad today. Okay, so how are we sharing and being authentic? And I think that is the key. It's not about skills. It's about knowing ourselves. And what I pointed out at the London event was knowing what triggers us and who really is responsible for it. Because we live in a world where we love to blame everybody for everything instead of looking on the inside. And once we know who we are, how we are, everything, this is going to sound woo-woo, flows easier. So then if my boss is upset with me, I'm not going to yell back at him, etc., etc. And I think that's what the human leadership is all about. It's being a human, being real, and leading first yourself and then others. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I thought your example was perfect, Ed, because not everything goes well. And we need to be able to say that.
Well, I think the guy who's got his own experience, of course, is Mark Colo. Mark, join us.
Gee, wow. A lot of thoughts flying through my head right now, Ed. We talked about technology and being in different situations when you're presenting and having wise and knowledgeable people around to help you dig through some of the uncertainty that you have. I'm looking at my screen. I got a green screen behind me. And
I see that. Yeah, I think it looks good.
I thought I had it set up last night, and when I went to bed, I said, "Oh, good, I'm all set to go." I just link in, and here I am. Now I'm here wondering, how the heck do I fix that? There's probably somebody on this call like Natalie who's been thinking all along, why is Mark on a green screen? I don't understand. It's human nature, right? Humany. You would think in these kind of thoughts. And so anyway, but for me, I like that analogy, Natalie, that you shared about, a family analogy to a situation. And we all have dynamics within our homes, family of 2 or family of 12 or however many you got in the family. There's always different dynamics that are hard to deal with.
So, Mark, I got to ask you this question for the sake of our global audience out there behind me. You're sitting there telling us this, and you were on stage and you were shaking in front of all these people. How do you maintain your composure mentally? What's the wisdom that I call it wisdom that you figured out works for you in spite of the visual?
What has worked for me, a great question, by the way, thank you for asking that. What has worked for me is it's taken quite a long time to realize that there's a journey you have to go through between the question, why me, and why not me? You think of those two statements, and
well, that's where you get the noble idea, right?
Exactly. That's where you dig out the noble part of it. That's exactly right. But for me, that has been one of the biggest things that's helped me. But the other thing is I've come up with these adaptive principles, I call them. And these adaptive principles have to do with ways to transition difficult situations. The first situation is the only constant in life is change. Embrace it. You know, some changes we have in life we can't do a thing about. You can't do a thing about a chronic disease or an illness where there's no cure at that point. So you have to learn ways to embrace it. And one of the greatest things that helped me, Ed, was getting back into my golf game. You know, they say golf, like life, is a series of mistakes with a few good shots in between. Kind of how our lives are. You know, we do something pretty good every now and then, we pat ourselves on the back, then we do 2 or 3 things that are just horrible. But golf is a game that it's literally a bunch of mistakes and maybe a couple of good shots. That's realistic, even with the pros. So that's one. The other one is, if you think things can't get worse, you're wrong. Life is difficult, and life will be full of surprises, but you still can move on and move forward. The thing I like to share with people is the depression. When you unscramble the word depression, it spells I pressed on. I love that comparison, that analogy. I love that, because we can
Really
always
good.
pick ourselves up. We can always press on, do a little bit better, and just try and move forward.
And the word press is inside there too. So, Tori, you're embarking on a new business now, aren't you? Strategies, consulting.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a mixed bag. So I have a new company called Workplace Evolutions, and basically what we're trying to do is just bring in wellness into the workplace. So everything everybody's saying so far, it just makes a lot of sense. There's a huge shift that needs to be happening, and sometimes that's a different way of understanding what we've been doing from the past. I think we're interestingly in a fantastic time where there's a mix of generations, there's a mix of cultures, there's a lot of opportunity for cross-generational and cross-cultural communication to happen. And we just need to understand that, you know, people are feeling certain stresses and dealing with them in different ways. Everybody's different. You brought up sports, Mark, and I think coaches of great teams understand how to build relationships with each player. They understand what players can take on more stress or need more sort of pressure, which ones need to play different roles. And so I think leaders really just need to build relationships with all of the people that they can and understand what it is. Resilience, when I looked into the etymology, it also sort of means to rebound, to kind of bounce back. And so I think that's an interesting point here, is that there are going to be difficult times, but when we get nervous on stage or when things don't go our way, how are we able to bounce back from that and recover? And I think recovery for our own individual health, you know, whether that's sleep, whether that's taking a day off, it's super important. And it needs to be built into companies. People need to understand how to build in recovery and rest into their workflow, as opposed to just, we're looking at our KPIs, we have this growth model, we have this sort of constant, never-ending game. Because as you all know, in probably what you're doing, and I have a lot of respect for all of you for being resilient and you know, facing the world and starting your own businesses and everything. It's going to be hard sometimes, and so we need to understand how to sort of recover as well, because having our foot on the gas eventually, all the time, eventually our car is going to break down.
Okay, Tineke, what's your take on all this?
Well, first of all, that is beautiful to see and hear, everybody, and how we align in our approach. And Mark, I always love hearing you, and I really admire how you face life. So I'm grateful that you're there again. Thank you. Because I think your message can't be shared enough. How you face your I don't know, should I say illness, or I don't know how you call it.
Well, actually, I call it, you know, they say Parkinson's is a gift that keeps on taking.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you know it's going to take something, right? And,
yeah, yeah,
in some ways, it's an advantage to have these things come, close to one another, because once you get diagnosed with Parkinson's, there's not much worse than that, if you think about it, as far as
yeah,
a
yeah,
degenerative illness. So,
yeah,
so I'm like, oh, what? I got cancer. Oh, okay. Well, we'll see if we can put it into remission. There's still some
exactly.
hope with that.
Yeah,
But right now there's no known cause, there's no known remission, there's no known cure for
yeah,
that disease. I mean, it's a challenge. But again, the more you go through these, I think that's part of what resilience is going through all these difficulties over and over and over. And anyone that hasn't had trials or adversity or difficulties in their lives really don't know what the word resilience is about. I mean,
true.
it comes through living life and meeting challenges dead on. And that, I think that's helped me in many ways. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
thanks
I
for-
think people, yeah, I mean, I tuned in a bit later, but I thought people need to know this context about you to understand even better about why you say what you say. So,
and the
yeah,
other thing I want to say, Ed, can I share one more thing along that
Please,
topic?
please
Is that
take
okay?
all the time you need.
Okay, the other thing that I think about is when people see me for the first time, I don't want to make me just an example, but it's easy here because you can see me. So, but when people see me for the first time, they're drawing judgments. We're naturally prone to draw judgments. First thing I'm thinking is, gosh, what did that guy do? To have that happen. I had a dear friend who he was body surfing with his son. He at the wedge in Newport Beach, California. He got picked up by a huge wave, thrown into a sandbank, and there was a boulder in it. He became a paraplegic on a respirator, just like that, instantly. And how do you recover from that? And I thought to myself, and this was a dear friend of mine. I thought, I don't think I can stand in the same room as him when I see him again, knowing him how he was and how close we were as friends and all the sports we played together. And now here he's sitting in a wheelchair, right? But he has learned that one of the things you have to learn to ingrain in yourself is a sense of humor. If you don't have a sense of humor, figure out how to get one, because laughter is by far the best medicine. And you have to use laughter at times. So the point I wanted to make is that if someone walks up to me and they're wondering what to call me, is it an illness? Is it a disease? What's the best thing to say? I think the best thing to say is, if you don't know what to say,
yeah,
is just say, gee, I don't have any idea what that's like that you're going through. I know it looks tough, but I want you to know I'm your friend and I'll help you in any way I can. And shut up. That's
So
all.
I want you all to join, every one of you. I want you all to mark down your calendar June 21, because we're going to take this theme into a bigger stage in LA. And I'm not sure what time we're going to start that yet. We're still working it out. But the current plan is to start it at 10 a.m. LA. But I think we're going to move it earlier so we can get more of Europe and Mideast involved. And our leadership is developing now. I'm going to produce it, of course, and host it. Paul Falcone is very well known through SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management. He's written 15 books. Harper Leadership. Excuse me. And so he's my top leader, and he's a former HR leader of Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon and NBC Universal and some other big names. I have obviously a lot of different kinds of talent and situations from the media entertainment business. And with that will be a woman by the name of Kim Congdon, Congdon, who earlier, on or about the same time Paul was involved in Paramount Pictures and studios. Kim was head of people operations for the Oscars, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is actually a big business, multifaceted. with a lot of union things interacting. She's now in a very top position as global head of people ops for a healthcare company, actually a food products company called Herbalife. And it's a $5 billion a year company based in LA, and she's in charge of the people side of things. So she's involved, and we're looking to build an audience of key leaders and speakers for a live meeting, also virtual, just like London. But we're going to try to fix it so the camera positions and the sound is more manageable. So it's June 21. It'll be an important event, and I'd like to carry this idea into that stage, not only for that day, but the world will see it subsequently because of the production and distribution. So Stephen and Mark and Tineke and Tori, I welcome you all to that stage, and we'll figure it out in the next few weeks. So Stephen, where do you go from here with book 23? Do you have any clues? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I just realized that. Yeah, unfortunately, I do have some ideas because I'm co-writing a book with somebody right now, and I've already started my own 23rd book, which will be a 3-part series. So I've actually started working on 23, 24, and 25. So I'm a glutton for punishment. That's all I can say.
So your organized system, I'm not trying to give you a stage here on purpose, although yes, it's a good idea, I guess, being in the global PR business. So Stephen, you have an organized system to help people, help yourself write a book, to build a storyline in a book format, meaning chapters. And you've got a system. I'm not asking you to give away your secrets here, but there's a methodology. There's a methodology that you use and then coach others to use as well. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? So, because the idea seems to me to be so overwhelming.
A blank piece of paper is probably one of the scariest things. My father was a fiction writer, and people used to ask him, what's the hardest thing about writing? And he always said the third word. And people said, huh, the third word, what do you mean by that? And he says, everyone puts a piece of, remember, this is back in the days of typewriters. So Dad would say, everyone puts a piece of paper in the typewriter and types chapter 1. And then they freeze. So where do you go from there? Look, my methodology is pretty straightforward, and I've used it with several other authors. I call it a 4x4 matrix. And this works for nonfiction. I only help coach writers who are writing nonfiction books, personal development, professional development mostly. It doesn't apply to like biographies and things. But so if you want to write a nonfiction book, business related topic, or self-development, personal development, something like that. So my 4x4 matrix is very simple. What are the 4 main messages that you want to communicate? And underneath that, what are the 4 key supporting messages? So let's say you're writing a book about a manager, you want to talk about feedback. So, the preparation would be one of your 4 key aspects of feedback. And then what are the 4 things under preparation? You want to prepare what you want to say, you want to prepare what you want to ask, you want to prepare the environment for the feedback, you want to prepare your mindset for the, okay, now, and then what are the other 3 things? So now you got basically 4x4, 16 chapters. You have 4 main messages, you got 16 chapters. You write that based on that outline. It never ends up 16 chapters. I mean, my books will end up 15, they'll end up 17 or 18, but that's how, for me, a way of getting people to get started, to get focused and narrow it down to 16 chunks of information they want to communicate. So,
Natalie, what do you think? You've written a few books. Natalie. Yeah, Dr. Natalie. Can you hear me?
Not sure if she's there.
I think we lost her.
Apologies. I just had to answer the phone.
Well, you are resilient, on display.
We try.
So,
Um,
so you've written a few books.
Yes.
Does Stephen's method interest you?
It does. And I also think we all work differently.
Yeah.
So number one, of course, I want to talk with Stephen. I want to talk with Tori, and I know I've got something set up with Tori already because we're all working in similar things. Now, the way that I work usually is the best way to describe it is it's like cooking chili. Okay, so you have all of the ingredients somewhere in my head, and then it starts bubbling, and then it comes out, especially when it boils over. So luckily, I don't have the problem about a white page, because once I sit down, I finish my book usually in about 2 days, approximately. But then, of course, we all need outside help, because I know that I'm repeating myself 5 times. I know that I really want to get that point in. And so then I need somebody like Stephen, who then is, going to help with some of the other aspects as well, and say, okay, how is it really logically flowing? And how can we make it sound a little better, possibly? I think that is absolutely important, because we're all in our own little world. And, if I just look at the books that I've written, they all differ. So, I started out just having to get something out of my system. And then the first book I wrote was completely misunderstood, which I still love. I still, every now and then, I actually am getting now inquiries about this book, because they thought I was prescribing that you all needed to be thin. It was literally called the keys to your ideal weight, but ideal was the acronym. And they didn't get that it wasn't about having it was quite the opposite. And from there, I then moved on to talking more about revolutionizing. And I think it's all a development. So the books, I think, are partially for the writer, for the author, to expose thought processes and to work through them, while being able to explain it to others, and then getting feedback from them and writing part number 2 or part number 3, or adding a foreword to it. And I think that's really the way it goes best. And every book speaks differently to every reader.
So tell us a little bit about your other TV shows. Are you still doing the LA Tribune?
Not right now. The LA Tribune actually is on hold as we're restructuring some things. You've just done your big live virtual event, and of course our events over the last 3 years tended to be big global online events, and they take a lot of time, as you know. And so we're really focused on that and having just about 2 or 3 shows on. And I've decided for right now, I'm just going to take a step back from doing the shows, because I felt it was getting a bit too much. And I'd rather support others. Talk about leadership. I know I need to be in the limelight, just like you, Ed, just like everybody here, but I also like being in the back and cheering people on. So instead of doing that, I'm actually with the G100 doing a lot of work with them right now, especially 2 of the events, shows that we have there. I usually help a lot in the back, which I love. And then every now and then I have to jump in. So that is more where I need to be right now.
Yeah. And what's G100?
A G100 is a global movement by Dr. Harbeen Arora, originated
It's about English. Women, right?
It's about, in German, I would say Jein. Okay, yes and no. Okay, because it really is to bring everybody together and to ensure that everybody has the same opportunities. It's really focused on the UN 17 SDGs. Okay, and yes, the focus right now is on women, but we've got lots of men, in the denim partners and the advisory boards. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, we had as a guest from Perth, Australia, a woman who's a scientist, Dr.
Yes.
Muriel Tukamami. She's oil and gas.
Yes.
and
Yes.
helping companies explore offshore Perth, Indian
Mhm.
Ocean, for oil, when the scare about Russia cutting off natural gas to Europe
Mhm.
about a year ago, she jumped forward into the G100, she told me on
Yeah.
our show,
Yeah.
about getting other people around, like overnight. They all
Mhm.
came together and started work to
Yeah.
organize drilling and whatever from
Yes.
that ocean off of Perth
Yeah.
in order, and targeting distribution
Yeah.
of the refined product into Europe. And now
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's not needed anymore. So, but so
Mhm.
I'm
No,
familiar with
yeah,
G100, but I
it
don't
is
think
one
the
of those things. Yeah, it
audience
is one
was.
of those things where we have, it's a global network and they're called wings. And every wing has a specific focus. So there's science, there's education, there's health, there's mine, of course, oneness and wisdom. Okay. And then you've got all the different areas, schooling, health, technology, arts and leadership. So everything, because in every area that we can think of in life, we need to bring people more together across the globe. That's
Yeah,
the idea behind it.
yeah. So, okay, Tineke, we're talking about all these things going on here about how resilience drives action and energy. And you know about that because of your background as an athlete. And now you're applying that into the world of business. And your approach is your approach on your male, female approach aimed at females more than men, or am I misspeaking here?
Well, I really do love to support male leaders to understand their women in their teams so much better, because I have a voluntary position, which is a president of She Credit, which is an organization in the Netherlands that helps women who scale their business find funding. And because of that position, I'm talking a lot to high executive men in the financial world. And when I have conversations with them, I always need to, they never are aware how difficult things are for us women in the workforce, in business, in leadership, because it's all designed around men and by men, which is fine. Well, that's how it's always been. And that's why there's so much change happening now, because we women claim our space as well. And we do things differently. So that's why there's so much change. And I think it's good when there's more balance between the masculine and the feminine. But when I talk to these men, they never seem to translate the experience they have with their women and their daughters to the workplace. I don't understand why this is the case. But then I say, but hey, don't you see this behavior with your wife? And they say, yeah, of course. And I say, and your daughters? Oh, most often they say less, because they're raised differently than we were. So I'm glad to hear that. But they never seem to understand that women are still a lot behind everywhere, in positions, in business, in so many things are just designed for men. And I can't blame them, because they are men. So for them, it's a very comfortable system. So I understand why they don't see it. And I see it's my, and it's not for me blaming, because that's not who I am. I understand why this is the case. And I wish women would stop blaming men for being white men, old white men, because why blame them? They've built everything. And yes, it needs to be different. So I want to talk to these guys and help them to understand why things need to change and how it's different for us. Because I used to be one of the guys. I had a business which I was the only woman in my country running a business in outdoor and survival sports. And I had like 50 male competitors in my country, and we had an organization. We built the whole niche. I was always the only woman. So I understand men pretty well. Not in a relationship, I must say that. But in business, I think I do understand pretty well. So yeah, I think I can bring this message because I'm not a threat. I speak their language, but I'm also a woman.
Tori, I think you have a subject here for a book. So
Oh,
yeah, contact Tineke, please.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking tremendous notes. But I think the important thing you said there, Tineke, is whether you're a woman or a man, we have to try to understand one another. And I think it sounds like you're doing a great job of that. We are different, and we have different systems in place, and yeah, we need to open up different streams of communication for more women leaders in the workplace. Absolutely. And I think understanding one another is at the heart of it.
Yeah, Stephen, are you still there? No. Okay. Yeah, he's got to deal with movers and relocation, Marcolo.
You
So,
should have called me first.
so are you consulting back in the relocation industry?
I'm dabbling with it, Ed. I've got a thought I want to share with you offline. But I'm
Okay.
dabbling with it in a direction that's totally different. Well, not totally different, very similar in many ways, but I'm going to expand my repertoire. And I've got a partner who Tineke, you would appreciate. He's a former competitor in the Kona triathlon. He's a top 10 finisher. So he went on several races. He went toe to toe with Scott Scott and Mark, I can't remember his name. Scott and Mark are the two first names. I know their first names, but they were the top champions for years and years. No one could beat them. They were like from another planet of some sort. So, but he's going to be a part of this venture. So that's why I mentioned him to you, Tineke.
So may I ask you, Tineke, did you and Andrew Elliman talk about Andy's new sport venture that he's pulling together to walk across Mongolia or someplace?
Is he? Oh man, that's one of my dreams, going to Mongolia.
Well, I think you ought to partner with him.
Mark, Andy and I, we've already had a one-on-one together, and we really see a lot of resemblance in how I used to have the kind of business I have and what he's doing now. So we made it, we changed like this, but we're now meeting here in the way our businesses are evolving. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make sure.
I love to do something with him. Definitely.
So I know you have communicated with him and set up a link, but I'll be back in Europe to partner with Andy in at least one meeting, maybe multiple. London for sure. And I think it'll be the second week in September, not final yet. And then on that same week, Paris. And then very likely we will do additional meetings, probably in Zurich, probably in Germany, and maybe Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's a maybe. I wouldn't mind doing Dubai, but I think that'll be another trip. And
so let's talk about that offline. How I can support you for Amsterdam, Ed. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always looking for sponsors, of course, and speakers on the corporate side. As a matter of fact, this week, or is it next week, I have a program set up with a gentleman who just left senior position, organization development within, God, what was that? Oh, Bayer. You pronounce it Bayer, I guess, B-A-Y-E-R.
Yes.
Yeah, in Amsterdam. And he's just moved into a new position just 10 days ago. Something to do with ESG, environmental and whatever. But and he's working with Kraft Heinz Foods.
Yeah.
Yeah, developing that kind of a program. Anyway, the talk show will be all about that. And perhaps you'd want to join that, make that connection, and anybody else, of course, too.
Yeah.
So,
keep inviting me, Ed. I love your shows. I love participating.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, wait a minute. We have a new person joining us. I just clicked the wrong thing. Stand by. Wait a minute. Okay, this is Dorothea, who's somewhere in Germany.
Oh, yes, Dorothea. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember her
right.
when we were talking about the EAPs. Yes.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so this is the first show
Yeah.
since then.
Mhm.
Hello, Dorothea.
Hi there.
Hi there. Well, welcome again.
Thank you very much, Ed. Happy to be here. Hello,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, so we want to self-introduce here. This is Dorothea. She was with us a couple of months ago, and since then you've you've moved on to a new role, a new position. Tell us about that.
Well, it's not a new role position. It's just I went self-employed a year and a half ago, and I'm just in the process of working on the positioning. So it's just a development, but it's not a new position per se.
Yeah, and where in Germany are you situated?
I'm about an hour north of Frankfurt, so I'm pretty much right bang in the middle of Germany, which is a good pole position to be moving in all all directions of the country.
Right. Dr. Natalie, how far away is that from Hamburg?
I think we're probably about 2 hours, two and a half. I was just in Düsseldorf a week and a half ago. It took me 3 hours by train. So I think it's
Yeah,
about
something
probably
like that.
yeah. It's not
Yeah,
that far.
Düsseldorf
And we've
is like
talked,
2 hours
Dorothy and I've
flying.
also talked.
Yeah, well, I thank you for joining us. So I want you to
Yeah.
meet Tineke and Tori, who's in Canada, West Coast Canada, and Stephen Howard's in Mexico City, but he is unable to be on camera at this moment.
All right.
So Dorothea, what is your specialty? I know it's EAP related stuff, but this show is about this is the launch of a series called Resilience, and whatever that means is sort of like we're touching the elephant.
Yes.
What does it mean to me? What does it mean to you?
Well, my specialty is mental health and mental well-being. So resilience obviously is an integral part of that. And what is resilience? So is that your question? What's my understanding, my take on resilience?
Yeah, why not?
Well, from my understanding, resilience is the ability to better deal with challenging situations. So you either get through challenging situations better or you recover more quickly. So you basically, you have resources and abilities to better deal with the challenges you're confronted with. That's my understanding of resilience. And resilience, that's a good thing. It's something that we can train. So every time we successfully manage to deal with a challenging situation, it's like a training that we can do in order to improve our resilience. So it's some aspects of it are genetic, but a lot of aspects of resilience are actually something, abilities that we can train and that we can work on. That's the good news.
Yeah, so your clientele are corporate, right?
Yes.
Right. So I don't expect you to share secrets, but just give us an insight into the Germany company scene. Are they embracing the EAP concept?
Well, it definitely, it has changed big time in the last few years, especially since the pandemic. That was it was even before that, companies started realizing that mental health and well-being is not nice to have, but it's actually important to embrace it and to put it on the corporate agenda. But from my experience, the pandemic definitely gave the whole thing a boost because companies realized, oh my goodness, people are under a lot of strain, under massive amounts of strain, and they were looking for ways of helping them. So EAP is an excellent way of supporting employees in times like that. And since then, the companies are more willing to invest time, to invest money in training, in coaching, in order to boost and promote and strengthen mental health and well-being of their teams and yeah.
Are you seeing? This is kind of an off the wall, and audience, again, this is not scripted. So Dorothea, are you seeing the mental health issue more prominent today because of working from anywhere rather than hidden away within working in an office situation?
Yeah, good question. That's a very good question. Now, a very good question. And I'm afraid I don't have a clear answer on that. What I
That's
can
okay. We're just exploring ideas.
What I can tell you for sure, and studies clearly suggest that it working from home or working in a more flexible environment rather than being set in an office situation can add more strain to your health and well-being, because it's more difficult to, or you're more challenged to organize yourself better. So self-management, self-leadership.
Right, and so isolation.
Exactly, isolation. So, our need for connection and belonging is one of our fundamental basic psychological needs. And if that need is not fulfilled, it can have a negative impact on our mental health and well-being. So by having more isolation due to flexible and remote work, that is actually an issue. And it requires not only companies, but also managers to keep an eye on this and to make sure that their teams do experience being connected, whether they do meet physically, at least from time to time, or if it's not possible in a physical setting, to at least meet in a virtual way. Because what's important for connection and belonging in the work context is that we don't just work together as a team, but we also have to have some fun times. We also have to have some good fun together. That's the so-called social glue that is missing when we spend too much time working isolated from home.
So is this more of, I don't mean anything by it, I'm just asking a question about, is it more of an issue? I don't want to give you my idea, although I can say, is it more of a female issue or a male issue? And if it's a male issue, how do you deal with that differently than if you're in a gab fest with ladies?
So hold on, I'm not sure if I understood you correctly.
No, I'm not sure I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Dr. Natalie, do you want to help me here?
Hey, Dorothea. No, I think what Ed is trying to get at is, are we dealing with men and women the same way? And do they have the same experiences? So when it comes to, burnout, stress, and dealing with it.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have any figures off the hook now I can present to you. But when I talked about these basic psychological needs, and we all have them irrespective of our gender or nationality. That's research has shown that basic psychological needs is something that we all have in varying degrees. So my need for connection and belonging is very, very strong, and maybe for somebody else it's less pronounced. But all humans have these basic psychological needs. It's just in varying, think of the word right now.
Yeah,
degrees. Yeah.
Degrees, thank you.
Yeah. Can I jump in here for a second?
Please, I'm getting lost.
I love what Dorothea just said, bringing in the terminology of needs, right? And I know we're partially focused on male, well, let's say feminine and masculine, but Tineke also earlier said it, we can't just blame the other for doing it right or wrong or anything. In the end, and that's where Stephen and everybody else, Mark and Tori and you had come in, it's about the individual, right? So we all have needs. We have the personal needs, and then we have the practical needs. And I would argue, and I also don't have any data, that for more masculine people, sometimes it's easier to focus on the practical needs and ignore the personal while they still build up. We have a lot of men right now who are burned out, who don't know how to handle it because of pressures. We have coaches who are just focused on men having to combine life and business. And at the same time, it really is more about meeting all of the needs of the individual. And therefore, we go back to what everybody else said earlier. We need to know ourselves and understand, okay, this is my need now, but Ed is actually trying to achieve this, and Tori is trying to achieve this. So I need to put myself over here. I know myself, so I'm over here. And now I'm going to help them figure out their personal and practical needs. I think that's where it's really going. And in that, the stress and the burnout can get alleviated when we're able to use our EQ, to put it that way.
Mm.
You know,
I had that's a really good point, Natalie. It just reminded me of something. I was facilitating a training a couple of months ago on health-oriented leadership. And we were also talking about basic psychological needs, because managers who pay attention to the basic psychological needs of their team members can have a very positive and strengthening factor on their mental health and well-being at the workplace. And it was quite an international group. So we had German people, we had Americans in the group, we had some French people. I can't remember. Anyway, it was a totally international group. And we had a very interesting discussion on this, because when we talked about fulfilling the need for connection and belonging, what does that mean to me? It means something else to me than it does to you, Ed, or to you, Natalie, or to you, Mark. So it's our personal interpretation of what does it take for my need for connection and belonging to be met. So if you want to talk about men and women, so maybe for a woman, it's important to, to meet her, I don't know, her best buddy and spend 3 hours talking about what happened for the day. Whereas there's maybe a man who's happy to just meet his best pal for a pint of beer and he's happy with that. But the same basic psychological need is being met, just how it's being met is completely different. So I think it's the actual interpretation of it can vary.
Okay, Tineke.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's Tony Robbins always talks about the 6 human needs, and I'm not sure if I can now mention all of them, but it's everybody needs to have those needs met to be able to be happy.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those basic needs, and there's 4, and then there's two needs, they're more about contributing and giving back and spiritual education. Those are the 2 that are less important, but the need to give, the need to be valued, the need to be seen, heard, accepted, those are so important for everybody, no matter children, grown-ups. And you can be extremely self-aware, you can be extremely self-confident. They are still important, always and ever. Yeah. And it doesn't matter, man or woman, masculine, female. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Tori? Oh, you're breaking up.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing it.
Excuse me. Mark, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'd love to. It can be complicated sometimes when you think about, the individual versus the group, trying to meet all the needs of the many, but then being aware of the few. And so it's a difficult place to come from. I was always excited about organizational behavior. I loved organizational behavior, love those courses. The only course in college I ever got an A+, if there is such a grade, I don't know. But I just loved it. Couldn't get enough of that. And it's fascinating because you have introverts, extroverts, you have all these other factors that you have to weigh in. And that's why I thought being an HR manager would be a very challenging thing to have to do. And I got to ask Dorothea, I've got to ask you, what part of Ireland are you from?
I'm actually 100% German, but I used to live in Ireland and I was married to an Irish guy, so that's where I picked up the accent.
And where in Ireland?
Dublin.
Dublin.
County
Great.
Wicklow, south of Dublin. Yeah.
Nice. I knew there was something in there with Ireland.
Yes, there's an Irish tilt in there, but I'm German yet.
Well, you're a good speaker, and they say that you ask an Irishman what time it is, they'll tell you how to make a watch. You're very comfortable in your speaking element. I just want to compliment you on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, that's really cute. Tori, you ready?
Yeah, sorry about that. Are you able to hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly.
I suppose my point was that kind of touching on what Natalie has said, we have to understand ourselves, and we can scale this in our business and everything, but what are some of the tools that we can actually start to use to better know ourselves? I'm just curious, in the group, Mark, Dorothy, Tineke, Natalie, Ed, how many of you meditate? Do hands up if you meditate? Sort of.
Lee.
I've done some meditation, not a lot, but I've done some. What I really enjoy doing is I enjoy listening to audiobooks. And I get up, the first thing I do, I get up in the morning, I get out of bed, I start getting my blood flowing, and I get on my shorts, my shirt. I'm out the door in seconds, going on a nice walk, listening to a book I've been meaning to read or listen to. And I think there's some value in the audio part of the book rather than just the visual reading the book. I think you get more from it when you can get different accents like you've got there, a little different dialects, a little different, there's different nuances you get from an audiobook that you don't quite get from just a static book. So anyway, I tend to ramble sometimes.
No, that's great, Mark. Honestly, an audiobook can be a very sort of meditative experience, whether it's music or an audiobook. Meditation isn't just sitting with your legs crossed in a temple in Tibet, so there's different forms of meditation. But please.
Music is another thing. There's some great songs out there that cause you to meditate. Great words, great messages. And I think we should remember to put on our little headsets and listen to our previous favorite tunes. That'll get you a little bit pumped up.
What about swimming? I meditate daily. I practice 5 minutes every day, a minimum. But when I go swimming and in the water, the movement and being with your own thoughts, I always try to empty my mind. I always try to be, so it's also great for meditation.
Yeah.
So when you swim, do you, and I ask this because I've got a pool downstairs here that I love. So when you are in a pool, Tineke, do you count the breaststrokes or the arm strokes, or do you count how many times you kick?
No,
I find that
it's very
gets
distracting.
Actually, that gets me focused on what I'm doing.
Does it?
And just clears my mind out of all the other distractions.
No,
that's me.
I don't. No, I don't. I just start swimming and I zone off and I swim and I turn around and I turn around and I turn around, and now the weather is going better, so I just swim outdoors. And no, I look at my watch. It's an hour, okay, and then it's about time to turn around, or it's about time to quit. But no, I don't count. No.
Yeah. Well,
hold on.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a personal trainer, and he now made me breathe differently. So he wanted me to breathe left and right and change, but my left really didn't work. So what I do now is 2 strokes, breathe, 4 strokes, breathe, 2 strokes, breathe, 4 strokes, breathe. So I am counting now. True. Yeah. But that makes my mind, my mind is not able to wander off then. And that's what I really love about the swimming.
Yeah, so I find that, I'll just be quick here. So I find counting how many times I do a breaststroke, and when I do the breaststroke, I don't kick. I just drag myself through. And the length of the pool is not a big pool, and it's at 80 degrees, so it's like a bathtub. But I'm able to concentrate on the breathing when I do the breaststrokes, and then on the flip side back, I just so I'm on a tube, all right, because then I don't have to think about sinking, and so it keeps me up, and I just focus in on kicks. And in each lap, it's a lap pool, each lap is about 100 to 150 kicks, kicks. And I do that to build up, not my heartbeat, I don't even think about that, but just the leg muscles. Yeah. And with that is breathing. And then I flip and I do the breaststrokes. And because I'm I'm more powerful in doing that and pushing the water away, especially when I'm in a sequential count and I keep thinking of it. Then I'm able to do more. I'm more powerful. I can get more coverage, and so I go across the pool faster than I do when I do this kick, kick, kick.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's weird.
But Tony, why did you ask if we meditated? Because I think you didn't get to make your point.
Yeah, thanks, Tineke. And then I'd love to hear what Dorothea is going to mention here. But the point here, I love everybody has a different answer, right? Everybody needs something different to either zone in or zone out, whatever we want to call it. You know, we need to start implementing tools for people to experiment with, whether that's swimming or meditation or going for a walk. Everybody's going to need something different, but I think leaders need to bring in different options for people to explore and experiment. I did a meditation with my 84-year-old grandma for the first time. She never meditated in 84 years. So all of us are aware of this stuff because this is what we're interested in, health and well-being and, leadership. This is something that we're paying attention to, but we also have to empathize and understand that people are interested in other things and maybe haven't even been exposed to the idea of meditation like my grandma in 84 years. So that was my point. We just need to sort of bring in tools for people to explore and get to know themselves better that way.
Interesting. Dr. Natalie?
Oh, okay. I thought Dorothea was first, but I
Oh,
want to
okay.
jump in right now, Dorothea, if that's
No
okay,
worries.
because I loved what Tori was saying and doing, and it's so true. Like when I talk about meditation, and I'm going to briefly mention something to Tineke as well, and we all know this, right? But it is about meditation can be anything where you stop that mind going. Some people call it prayer. For some people, it's having a coffee on the terrace. For others, it's this, it's called wood bathing, forest bathing, whatever it is, we all have it. And the breathing, I think, is crucial because we do it in meditation and then the counting. So whether we do it consciously or not, but then Tineke just mentioned about 2, 4, 2, 4, and there are specific breathing exercises for meditation as well, where we breathe and hold it for a specific amount of time. And it does different things to different people. And the last thing before I'll hand it over to Dorothea is really, we're talking about wellness and resilience. Wellness is not just the physical health, right? Wellness has so many components to it because we do have the component of financial wealth or financial health. If I'm consistently worried about finances, so when we're talking about EAPs, it can't just be about exercise or meditate. Resilient also comes with, okay, inflation is coming. It also comes with, whoa, my husband has lost his job. What are we going to do? All of that together. And then, using Mark's example, always trying to figure out life is happening for me. I'm grateful. This is fun. Let me laugh about the fact that my husband just lost his job. But it is how we need to deal with it. Sorry, Dorothea. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. I was just going to say, Tori, I really like that discussion that you brought up because, like you said, it very clearly shows that we all need different things. And I like this term of finding your perfect regenerative counterweight. So find the exact opposite of what drains your energy throughout the day. So if you work in a job that's where you spend most of your day in front of your screen, your ideal regenerative counterweight is most likely going to be something without a screen. So going for a walk, being outdoors, doing sports. So everybody has to find kind of their perfect way of recharging their battery in the evening. And Tori, like you said, it has a lot to do with experimenting and trying out, because maybe meditation is great and I just haven't, picked up on it yet properly. So totally agree with you on that. And Natalie, also what you said is an important aspect. So charging or making sure that we charge our battery continuously is one part of being resilient, but it's not all of it. Feeling a sense of security, like also having a sense of financial security, is also equally important. It just shows there's like a whole range of needs that the better they are fulfilled, the more resilient a person is going to be.
So I have to tell you that I was on a long flight, 2 long flights yesterday. It was 7 hours from Paris to Boston, and then a 4-hour layover, and then a 6-hour flight, Boston to San Diego. And the last hour of the last flight, boy, was it dragging on. So I was watching TV on the seat in front of me, and doing all this different shows. And I came across this TV preacher, an American, and I can't remember his name right now, but is a young guy with a lot of black hair in a beautiful church setting. It was actually quite dramatic. And so the guy is really a good speaker. He talks like a mile a minute, but he talks to the audience looking right at the TV camera about resilience. Coincidentally, it was about resilience when the gremlins or the devil is getting into your head about stuff. Okay. And so he says you can, and we've all heard this before, but the guy was really effective. And it got me out of worrying about the plane ride and being tired and getting ready for this program in a few hours. And so he talked about choosing. He says you can choose. He was preaching God. You can choose a better way for yourself. You may hear in your head, you may hear negative this or hatred towards something, or picking a fight with the boss or a co-worker or spouse or whatever, but you can choose to not do that. You choose to have a smile on your face. You can choose to think more positive about something. I found that really resilient for me at that moment last night after flying 12 and a half hours. Mark.
Begs the question. I like that you shared that. It kind of begs the question, can an optimist become a pessimist? And what's the best way to get there? I mean, you think about, there's so many scenarios in life where you think the glass half full, it's half empty. Does it really have to do with proportions? I touch about that in one of my books, but it's got to be a challenge if you're ingrained to be an optimist and then you're trying to become a pessimist, or vice versa, and that's always been a quandary to me. My latest mantra in life that I follow is adaptability proliferates possibility. And that's the name of my TEDx talk, essentially. So if you like the TEDx talk, that's the whole subject. And I hope you enjoy it. And then the last thing I want to say is, did anyone raise your hand if you watched the Michael J. Fox movie Still? Oh, great. Two. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. There were so many pearls of wisdom in there that I really enjoyed. My favorite part was his kind of near his parting remarks. And he said, basically, with gratitude, optimism is sustainable. And that to me was a big message as well. With gratitude, optimism is sustainable. I think that's so cool. I don't know if he came up with that or his writers did, but somebody came up with a good thought there. So anyway.
Okay, who wants to talk? Dorothea.
Ed, I just remembered a quote when you were talking about, that we can make a decision about what we want to believe. I remembered a quote I used the other day in a seminar, and it's by William James. He was a professor for psychology and philosophy at Harvard, and he said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another."
That's great.
Yeah, I like this one.
It's powerful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Dr. Natalie, thank you for being involved in the shrink session here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I think we should do this again sometime. So my plan is to produce a show called Resilience and keep it in this kind of format whenever possible, because I think this is optimization of not only not being afraid of the camera, but also sharing personal insights as it relates to the topic. And as we could see, it's this topic, theme of resilience and well-being as applied to the workplace. So what is the workplace? And then how is it happening? And Stephen Howard talks about hands-off, behind the scenes, not manipulation, but enabling people to try new things, to experiment. And Tori, you've been a professor helping a variety of people from different backgrounds, across generations, across culture, but all in the room in Vancouver. Are you going to go back to that on occasion?
Yeah, I still like teaching. I think there's value in helping this younger generation, especially. I mean, we all can remember what it was like to be 19 and 20 and either feel invincible or totally unsure. And I do love teaching. I think more than anything, you know, we're talking about life here, like the macro of all of this. We all have business in the context, but we all have sort of one shot at this beautiful life. And I think it's important for us to just remember, like, everybody's likely got something going on, you know, as Mark alluded to before. You know, we never know what somebody's got going on. I'm presuming everybody in this room has something, you know, and I think if we can just remember that as at the heart of everything, whether they're students, whether they're our colleagues or our mentors, our bosses, nobody's perfect. Everybody's, especially social media, you know, social media, nobody's showing themselves in their worst moments. So everybody's showing their best moments. And so that for me is a big motivator for that younger generation, to just remind them that, hey, you guys grew up in this world where everything appears to be a certain way. But as all of us in this room know, before the internet, we had a different measurement of what's going on in the world. Now, coming into the world, everything you see online is basically somebody's perfect life. And that's not really realistic. So I think, as Tineke sort of talked before about, you know, hurting herself. I mean, I'm sorry that happened, but you're an athlete and you hurt yourself, and it's like, you're a human being. You know, we are not flawless. We are not invincible. And I think that's a good thing to just remember and hopefully pass on to the next generations.
Tineke?
But you know, Tori, you know, I sort of am grateful for that, the fact that it happened, because it has taught me a lot. It has taught me to ask for help. It has taught me to wait. It has taught me to be humble. So I am fortunate that it's only been 2 weeks that I was in my wheelchair and that I have been stumbling around on crutches, and my body is still fit and healthy. But it has taught me a lot, really. So, yeah.
Oh,
That's
boy.
a great attitude.
Yeah. So Dorothea, you've heard in your half hour with us so far a lot. And I invite you to come back and if you know of another person who might enjoy this kind of a format, let's set it up for later this month or early June and do another one. And I just want you to know, amongst others here again, that June 21, I'm producing a Los Angeles event, in person and virtual, and the cast of characters is being put together now, and I invite you to join that. I'm not sure of the exact start time. Right now is set for 10 a.m. LA, but I think we're going to start it earlier so we can get more people like yourself involved from Europe and the Middle East. It's a little difficult. Yeah, it's a little difficult for people from India because it's dinner time. So we'll have to focus on that market separately. We do have a program on Asia Pacific that's late May, and I'll send out a message to people who want to tune in. It's with an EAP professional, Dr. Mian Lau from Kuala Lumpur. She's very well known in Asia Pacific EAP, Employee Assistance Plans. Dr. Natalie, what do you have coming up that is, are you still involved with helping doctors be real people?
That sounds kind of bad. But since Mark mentioned the movie or the documentary earlier, that young gentleman also just posted something on Instagram saying, if you want to be a real hero, be a nurse. So yes, I'm still working. I'm still very focused on the medical staff. Absolutely. I'm also working still with women, because the way that I look at the world, I'm working with people who are at I call it the crossroads. And I think, everybody here has pointed out that we face crossroads every single day, some big, some small. And some of us have more resilience and more skills to deal with those. And sometimes we just need somebody to listen to us and work with us. And fortunately, there are a lot of people like me out there who want to help. There are unfortunately not a lot of experts like me out there who actually focus on working with the medical staff. And that, I think, is a huge need. The pressures of the medical staff, and not just for the regular day stresses, but they also have to deal, I just had a conversation about that the other day, with the pharma industry, with the medical equipment industry, with the bad news about new immunizations coming or not coming, people being upset that not more is done. So they have a whole lot of stuff going on, and they don't often have the ability to actually find the support they need, because then they do face a lot of doubt, worry, and even exclusion from others.
Mark, you and I have developed the medical TV talk shows featuring primarily medical researchers, scientists, and doctors involved in the brain. Okay, and we had a very successful show with
Janet Beekman.
Jana Stoudemire, from Axiom Space, and they're developing the first commercial space station, or one of the first. I think Musk is building another one on his own, but and so on that show we had Jana talk about medical research applications to research in the space station because of lack of gravity impacting the medical research. And on that same program, we had Dr. Paula, I can't remember her last name, but she's the head of the US-based National Stem Cell Foundation, and they shared ideas. And so, Mark, I welcome you to help me organize another one with these people and perhaps others. And maybe Dr. Natalie, you'd want to join that conversation. These are very senior level approach.
Yeah, I'd love it. And Mark and some of his friends were also, when I still did the Los Angeles Tribune show, they were on. It was a very, very interesting discussion, really pushing the barriers of what we need. So I'm still very grateful for Mark and his colleagues coming onto that show.
Well, both those shows were fun shows, Ed. I have to say, both those shows were very fun.
Yeah. Dorothy, I welcome you back. Matthias Kruger was going to join us, but he got jammed into something else today. So he'll come back. And we want to go deeper and to have more EAP related people and some corporate EAP managers, if possible, in upcoming programs on resilience. Tori, I welcome you back. So we're coming up to about 100 minutes, and I think we probably talked enough. but what do you think, Mark? Do you want to talk more?
I do. I've got one more bit for my parting remarks. First, I want to say, for those of you who didn't get my chat, check the chat room and copy and paste it, my information, if you would, and watch my video. I just would love to get your feedback. And if you have a friend that can benefit from the topic and the subject or the message, forward it on to them. Say you enjoyed it, or if you didn't like it, just delete. But I'm hopeful you'll enjoy it.
So I'm going to put it on, I'm going to put it on this show's website when it's ready. And also I'll put it on globaltvtalkshow.com under your photo.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, you bet.
A few more mantras real quick. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. You can't argue somebody out of a belief. Pressure creates resistance. All you can change are your thoughts and actions. That's one for you, Tori. You never know what other people are thinking. You live up or down to your expectations. And the last one is the good old days weren't all that good.
Yeah, I think today is a peak for me anyway, and I thank you. Dorothea, it's lovely to see you, and I welcome you to come back and do more, and once again, invite a friend or colleague to join the conversation. We welcome new ideas and new everything. Dr. Natalie, thank you again.
Thank you.
Tori,
Thank you, Ed.
cheers. And so we'll get Dr. Andrew Woods back on the show someday. I know he's been busy.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the time. It's great hearing all of your opinions, and I'd love to get to know all of you more. Before we do leave, I know sometimes when we're in this kind of cognitive space of thinking and brainstorming and dreaming, we do tend to get out of our body. And I think it's just my favorite thing to do is just take a deep breath, and breathing's free. We live, we die, in between it's all breathing. So, breathe. If you all want to do it right now, we can just kind of breathe into our stomachs. It's free.
Okay, ready? Oh, that's good. Thank you.
It feels great, right? You can do it as much as you want.
That was good.
Unlimited. So thank you all for your time today. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot.
This has been great. Great 100 minutes. Thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show again. Welcome back.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.